Welcome and bienvenidos to Cultural Capacity, a podcast sponsored by Educator Aide Incorporated, where our team is committed to supporting individuals and organizations on their journey of self-aware leadership, emotional wellness, and development of effective cross-cultural communications. Let's get ready to explore the following topics together by biting into them with little pieces that go really deep to examine ourselves. Topics like bias, culture, cultural psychology, cultural neuroscience, diversity, equity, inclusion, and racial equity. Our episodes are all 10 minutes or less and intended to serve as introspective tools for you as the individual leader or the teams that you're leading. Be sure to check out the links in the podcast description where you can sign up for our free quarterly subscription, Better Community, as well as tap in and submit your questions via the voice message button. Let's get ready to learn together. Hey, you all. Welcome to this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. If you're not already subscribed or following us on your preferred platform for this podcast, please take a moment to do so now. Your support helps us greatly. Also, this is an ad-free episode, so I'm excited to dive in. I do try to keep them, our team. Let me be clear. Our creative director tries to keep me under 15 minutes per episode. So you're going to see episodes that range in length from anywhere from 7 or 8 minutes to about 15 minutes. So the intention with any episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast is it's an a la carte. You can literally select a question that maybe you're like, oh, yeah, I have been wondering that. You can turn it on and listen individually for your own personal development and growth. And or you can also share with teams. These are structured in such a way that topically, I find many corporations as well as school districts and nonprofits, no matter the sector of organization that I've gotten the honor to work with, it's very common that people are scrambling to put together professional learning or professional development for their teams with intentionality. And I understand completely why. I've been in that seat and seats with an S in different roles, different types of organizations, and across different sectors. And so it does get really busy. You know, you're focused on being in the trenches, whatever that looks like, however that looks for you. And often we don't have time to sit down and plan intentionally with the amount of time that's really required for intentional professional learning. We just don't always have time to do that, or we would be sacrificing our own care for ourselves and our loved ones. So I wanted to create something that offers you a lot of value, and you can literally turn it on at the launch of a staff meeting. Obviously, you want to have listened to it first. There's often questions or little protocols that we embed in every episode, and take a moment to do those exercises. Do it as an opener, do it as pre-work to a professional learning session. But the intention is so that you already have kind of a pre-packaged topical approach, and you are also keeping matters of um, cultural awareness, emotional intelligence, understanding how people feel, where they are at, their beliefs, their opinions, who they are, what drives them, their motivations, how they manage distress, and many, many other aspects that come into play at the workplace that we know are what lead to better retention of employees, better employee satisfaction, better employee engagement, and overall, right, the long-term retention within our organizations, which creates more consistency and execution of the vision and mission, etc. So all that to say, my job is to hopefully help you shine and make your life easier. And whatever title you hold, I know no matter what that is, many are given the opportunity to lead professional learning, and throwing an audio that people can just relax and listen to for 10 minutes and then discuss together gives you a perfect frame up to dive into learning together and build a container that feels ready for people to dive in and collaborate together then on whatever the work is for your organization. So I highly recommend starting any meeting and or professional learning session, even if it's not this podcast or anything like that, but with something of that nature. I've been in organizations where they are called energizers or connections. In the K-12 system, you often find a model called morning meeting, and that's intentional. It's to check in with people and to make sure we are always humanizing those that we work alongside and ourselves. That's key. It's all we lead with vulnerability first if we expect others to be open in the workplace about what they need or what they maybe don't feel motivated to do, etc., whatever we're talking about. Um, but it's just always such a great way to build that container even more and do it with some intentionality. So, wanted to put that out there and make sure that you all had that framework going into this very brief episode. But a question I get often after many of our workshops or throughout, or it just comes up often in different workshops that I facilitate or some of our team members facilitate for Educator Aide Incorporated. And that is this question: what is the difference between empathy and sympathy? Empathy and sympathy. So, the best way that I think about it, often you see pictorials or people say, yeah, empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes. That statement really, really misses the mark when it comes to empathy because it takes so much. First of all, you can never actually walk in somebody else's shoes. And secondly, it takes a lot to be in a space to try to develop a deep, passionate respect, connection, emotive parts of us to really understanding somebody and wanting to understand deeply their lived experiences and then believing those lived experiences as well. It would require so many prerequisites for us to really be able to quote unquote put ourselves in other people's shoes, and it's not possible. So often that word empathy gets diminished, or we hear it thrown around in the workplace a lot now, especially with continued uprising and cries for racial equity, gender equality, et cetera, et cetera. We could go on and on and on about all of the different groups of minoritized populations in any given workplace and how that adds up, because that can also have to do with rank. Quote, I'm using air quote, rank has to do with a hierarchy and your class of employee. Oh, you're a worker. Oh, you're C-suite. Oh, you're this. Humans, we love to put labels on things, and it really gets us into trouble a lot of times because we say, well, I'm trying to empathize with them. Well, no, literally can't be in their shoes right now in a lot of respects. So I wanted to be very clear with that just in answering this question. Empathy actually comes from, I believe it's a Greek or Latin term, and pathos, en pathos, which actually means to get deeply passionate. So, in order for me to get deeply passionate about someone or something, that requires me to really have a thorough education of it, to have had multiple ways and opportunities, different modalities to engage intentionally with that topic or that person, etc. Right? For me to even get to a place of becoming passionate. So if we haven't done the work of perhaps deconstructing our own views, our own beliefs, our own cultural origin story, where we come from, why we believe the way we do, all these pieces about ultimately you as an individual person, that awareness of who you are, what you believe, why you believe it, you got to start there. And then to do that for others, right? There's so much deep education that you have to take ownership for. Each of us as individuals, we all have to take ownership for. If I say, I really want to go to synagogue sometime, I've never been to synagogue. Now, I know that part of my bloodline comes descendant from Ashkenazi Jew. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, right? I'm not super connected to that part of my lineage, nor have I ever been to synagogue. Do I know people who are practicing Judaism? Yes, I do. But that takes a lot of time, intentionality, and effort, even myself as a learner. I do follow a couple rabbis. I have a copy of, I'm using myself as kind of a real-time case study for you all. I have a copy of the Torah, which I have not read cover to cover. So right, I would consider myself like, I'm not in a place of empathy in that respect if I use that prime example of, I want to go to synagogue sometime. So, in using that real time case study, right, it would require a lot of further education, intentional interaction, and learning on my part, um, to feel comfortable going into that type of setting. And I think that that's a huge part of awareness is in our excitement in when it's learning about anything new or it's fresh or it's like maybe you feel bad, like, oh, I didn't know that about that culture or that person or that race of people or that ethnic group of people. Like, whatever it is, it's okay to not know something. What's not okay is to either pretend we do or to not recognize that, hey, I'm new to this. And I also need to give myself time and space before I just jump into these opportunities or for engagement that where I would be the minority, so to speak, meaning I've never gone to synagogue. And so so anyways, let me get off of that and give you a really quick way to remember the difference when it comes to sympathy. The key word you want to listen for in your head for your own thinking patterns is should. When you use terms, or even in your head, if you're thinking, oh, I should go to this, oh, I should go talk to that person. Sympathy comes from a place of you feel like you have to do something, you feel obligated to do it. Maybe from guilt, maybe from shame, maybe you feel pity for somebody. Sympathy is usually about you are doing it because you think that you're supposed to, right? And you should do something. And that doesn't mean that good things can't come out of being sympathetic towards others. There's just a big difference between sympathy and empathy. With empathy, going back to what I said, just to recap us and close us out in this episode, um, it has to do with becoming deeply passionate and also learning and understanding whatever that topic or person or culture, fill in the blank here, thing is that you're wanting to expand your knowledge and your awareness around. So that's a big difference. And I think that's also why you might see many people, whether it's your colleagues, yourself, etc., we become fatigued when we are taking in a lot of information or learning something new, or developing a new awareness about something or someone. So, empathy is a lot of heavy lifting and hard work on the individual and also requires accountability, ongoing accountability. However, um, the on the flip side, then with sympathy, if you find yourself saying, oh, well, I should talk to that person, that's coming from a place of sympathy and just know what it is and know how to identify it. So I'm going to close this out. Thanks so much for tuning in and come back next time. Excited for you to join us in the next episode and be sure to check out some of our free learning materials on educatoraide.com. Let's continue to get compassionately curious together. Take care. Thank you so much for showing up for yourself today and tuning in to this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. We're glad you're here. If you found value in this episode, be sure to share out with your social networks. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a review on Apple. You know, all the things. Finally, don't forget to take advantage of our free quarterly subscription that is in our podcast description. The link is right there. It's called Better Community, and we would love to have you join us there too. Until next time, take care.